Welcome back, fantasy football people. We have a start-sit video for week number 8. Some guys that I love their matchups this week and think will have a good game, and some guys that I think I'm a little concerned about starting. Of course, anything can happen. A guy can randomly find the end zone 2 times like Randall Cobb last night. Randall Cobb, by the way, I have a funny story about fantasy as we start up here. So I thought I was the smartest guy in the world. I woke up early for work on Wednesday morning when the waivers run through. I pick up Randall Cobb, and then I drop him. And I think he's going to re-hit the waivers again and not be eligible to be picked up until Thursday. And that's where I thought wrong, because my opponent still found a way to pick up Randall Cobb and play him against me. And Randall Cobb had 3 catches for 15 yards, and I'm like, all right, we're in good shape. But he found the end zone twice. So he put up 16 fantasy points against me. I actually had to message Yahoo, very politely by the way, and find out why he was able to pick up Randall Cobb. And apparently you have to hold the player for a certain amount of time before they re-hit the waivers. So my fault. I should have kept him through Thursday. Anyway, that's a good lesson for anyone who plays Yahoo Fantasy Football. If you're trying to keep your opponent away from a certain player, hold on to him for at least 24 hours, and then you'll probably be okay there. Anyway, before we get into the video, once again, I have a Twitter account for the fantasy football section of what I do. Of course, I put the wrong Twitter in here, but anyway, the Twitter for fantasy football is at @MTN_fantasy. Can't miss it. Has the same logo as the one seen here in the middle on the bottom. So anyway, let's get into it. Favorite week number 8 starts here. Number 1, we'll start on the top right here. Kirk Cousins, who's owned in 83% of Yahoo leagues. So both teams coming off the bye in this matchup, the Vikings and Cowboys. This game has the highest total point projected total of this week, which is 53.5 at the time I was making the graphic. Maybe it's higher, maybe it's lower. Could be lower actually, because Dak Prescott has the calf injury, didn't respond well, but Dak wants to play in this game, so I think he'll play, but that could impact the point total, of course. Now, Dalvin Cook's back completely healthy. He had some ankle troubles earlier this year. He should be back completely healthy. Of course, Adam Thielen's healthy. They have Justin Jefferson playing well. They have Tyler Conklin. There is a lot of receiving options right here for the Vikings, and their offensive line's been okay. It's been good enough. And Dallas right now, they're not that good in the secondary. Of course, Trayvon Diggs has all the turnovers, but just playing in terms of giving up yards and giving up touchdowns to receivers, Dallas' secondary has not been that great. This is a great matchup for anybody, especially Kirk Cousins, who last week even put up like 20, not last week, he was on a bye last week, but 2 weeks ago, the last time the Vikings played, Kirk Cousins put up like 28 fantasy points. So obviously he can do it. And that game was actually at Carolina, which is a better defense, I think, than the Cowboys. So this should be a great matchup here. The Vikings are the home team. I actually think the Vikings are going to win this game. So I like Kirk Cousins here. Good chance he goes for over 300 yards. And, touchdowns are unpredictable. But I think the chance of 3 touchdowns here is kind of likely. Maybe it'll be 2, but it'll still be a good performance. Kirk Cousins won't kill you. And he has a chance to have a really big game here on Sunday night. Next, right below Kirk Cousins, we have Michael Carter, running back of the New York Jets. Now, Carter is 65% owned, and I'm sure most of these guys on this list are owned. Maybe not the Eagles defense, but I'm sure everyone else will be owned. But this video is mainly for like would I play this guy over that guy. And if you guys have any questions, let me know in the comments. I'll get back to you and have my best educated guess on those answers. So if you have a question, let me know. Anyway, so the Jets are 10.5 point dogs at home, of course, against Cincinnati. No surprise. Backup quarterback Mike White's in there. Now, Michael Carter was not playable at one point this year, but his production, but mainly the snap counts and his involvement with the Jets offense is going up week by week. And they came out of their bye last week, and Michael Carter had a season-high 72% of snaps in Week 7. Tevin Coleman, the other running back on the Jets, one of the 3 running backs they use, has a hamstring issue, did not practice Thursday, so he may not play in this game. I feel even better about Michael Carter if Tevin Coleman misses. Ty Johnson's still there, but Ty Johnson played 20-something% of snaps last week, wasn't the biggest deal. Now, Michael Carter, you may say, well, the Jets are big underdogs. They're not going to run the ball. But Michael Carter saw the 3rd most running back targets last week with 9 targets in that game against the Patriots. Yes, they were down like 52-14 or something, but still, this is a game where Cincinnati's probably going to go ahead early, you would assume, and then Michael Carter and the Jets offense will play from behind, and targets are more valuable than rushing attempts. So if you're a Michael Carter fantasy owner, you will take the receiving targets. So Michael Carter should have a pretty safe floor, and if he finds the end zone, has a chance to be a high-end RB2 possibly. So I do like a play for Michael Carter here in week number 8. Next, we have wide receiver Sterling Shepard of my New York Giants. Now, Shepard is scary for a couple reasons. Of course, the injury, and number 2 is playing on Monday night. So if you're in a situation where Sterling Shepard is ruled out on Monday morning or even Monday right before the game, you're very limited with your options of who you can pick up. And it depends on your format, because I believe in certain formats like ESPN, if a guy has played already, you can't drop him. So you're going to be in a situation where you might have to take a 0 if Sterling Shepard has a setback on Monday or something. So keep up with the health updates, but if Shepard plays, I love the matchup here. This is a game where the Giants are 10-point underdogs, maybe 9.5-point underdogs now, but the Giants will be playing from behind, presumably most times in this game. And I like Daniel Jones as a streaming option. Daniel Jones will probably throw the ball 40-plus times in this game. And when Sterling Shepard has played this year, which has not been much, granted, but when he's played this year, he's been getting targeted a lot. He's Daniel Jones' guy. In Week 1, Shepard saw 9 targets. Week 2, he saw 10. He played in Week 6 against the Rams, had 14 targets and 10 catches for 76 yards in that game. So when Sterling Shepard plays, he is Daniel Jones' go-to guy. He locks in on Sterling Shepard. Now, Kadarius Toney may play in this game. It sounds like Tony's actually trending towards playing. Galladay's probably out. Barkley's probably out. But as for Shepard and as for Toney, looks like they're both going to play. We'll see. Once again, it could be a very bad situation if Shepard is ruled out on Monday. But I'm telling you guys this, I'm starting Shepard right now in one of my flex spots. By the way, this is another tip for fantasy. I'm sure most of you know. Put Shepard in your flex spot, because in the event that something bad goes on, you have more options. You can pick up a running back, you can pick up a tight end. You're not just limiting yourself to wide receivers. So if Shepard's ruled out, and let's say Evan Engram plays or Kyle Rudolph wants to play or something, you can say, oh, well, I'm not going to pick up Slayton. Let me pick up Kyle Rudolph, or let me pick up Engram. You can pick up a different guy. So, put him in your flex spot. Hopefully Shepard plays, but there should be a really good spot for him. He'll see a lot of targets against the Chiefs defense that sucks. And Charvarius Ward and L'Jarius Sneed, the corners for the Chiefs, have not been too impressive. I think Shepard, if he plays, probably sees around 10 targets and probably has his usual 8 catches, 80 yards type game. And if he finds the end zone, it's going to be a great week for Sterling Shepard. Next, we have Ricky Seals-Jones, the tight end for the Washington football team. He's 42% owned, and he's honestly been the new Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas is still on IR, not coming back this week, but RSJ from weeks 5 to 7 has been a pretty good tight end. He's been the tight end 8 in fantasy football, so the 8th best tight end from weeks 5 to 7 since being like the full-time starter. So Ricky Seals-Jones a fine play, and if someone doesn't own him for some reason in your league, I think he's a fine play. Of course, tight end is a tough position sometimes to have people that are consistent. And the thing I like about Ricky Seals-Jones is he won't give you a 0, or he won't give you a 1 or a 2. And now that I said that, he probably will. But I do start Ricky Seals-Jones in I think 2 leagues now. I play in 3. I think I started him in 2. So my tight end spot's not in a good spot right now. But Ricky Seals-Jones has been solid. He's been putting up like 8 points, 9 points, 10 points, 11 points, 12 points, somewhere in that area. So if you have a good team other than your tight end, Ricky Seals-Jones is not going to kill you. And if he finds the end zone, of course, he might have a 15, 16-point week, and then, oh crap, my tight end's actually really good. So Ricky Seals-Jones is seeing the targets, and I think if he finds the end zone, it's going to be a great spot for him. The matchup is not the best. I believe Washington plays Denver this week, but Denver, remember, is down 2 of their starting linebackers. It's Josie Jewell and some other guy, I forget his name. Very generic name. I forget the guy's name, but good player. But he's out. So the Broncos have 2 linebackers out. It's going to be easier for Ricky Seals-Jones to work over the middle of the field here. So I think the Broncos actually traded for a Rams linebacker this week, but it doesn't matter. I like Ricky Seals-Jones in this matchup. Should be a close game, so the passing work will be there for Taylor Heineke and the Washington offense. And Ricky Seals-Jones has been consistent so far, so I'm going to keep riding that wave until Logan Thomas gets back. Next, we have a defense that's 9% owned in Yahoo leagues. The Philadelphia Eagles, they go up against the Detroit Lions on the road here. So the reason I like this is because the Eagles' run defense has been pretty good so far this year. I forget where they rank. I didn't put it in here, but they are a good run defense so far this year. And if you can take, I almost said Straw Miles Swift. Where's my mind going? DeAndre Swift, and you take Jamal Williams out of the running game, you're going to force Jared Goff to beat you. And the Eagles' secondary has actually been kind of good this year. Like, they're not putting up the best numbers, but like Avonte Maddox is playing well, Darius Slay is playing well, Steven Nelson's playing well. And if you get Jared Goff in a game where he has to pass from behind, because the Eagles are 3.5-point favorites, I think the Eagles win by more than 3.5 this week. So if you get Jared Goff in this negative game script and have these good Eagles secondary players, this could be a pick 6, and that's all you need to have a good defensive week. So they're not my first preference, but for a defense that's very low owned, if you play in DFS and DraftKings and FanDuel and you want like a cheap defense, I feel like Philadelphia is not that bad. So I would go with them. Of course, they're not the best defense this week, but I could see some potential here if Jared Goff throws a bad interception or two. Next, we have Khalil Herbert, running back of the Chicago Bears. He is 78% owned. So either Damian Williams, they wanted to work him back slowly because he just had COVID, or he's just not really a part of the offense anymore. I mean, he's going to have his role, but like it was pretty much all Khalil Herbert last week. So he's the guy. I mean, Khalil Herbert had over 100 rushing yards against Tampa's defense. We know how great Tampa's defense is versus the run. Chicago's offensive line, especially early on, and part of it's because Justin Fields holds on to the ball too long. There's a lot of like negative connotation around the Bears' offensive line. But the Bears, according to PFF, have a really good run blocking offensive line. So like that's fine for them. Right now, Chicago is only 3.5-point underdogs, so it should be a somewhat close game where they won't be down multiple scores. They can keep running the ball here with Khalil Herbert, and I think Herbert had like 18 carries last week, so maybe they don't care what the score is. I think Khalil Herbert has a safe floor, and if he did it against a Tampa Bay defense last week, I feel like he'll put up some good numbers at home here against the 49ers. And once again, Damian Williams, maybe he's worked back to him more this week because he's going to be practicing all week, but I don't know if you're the Bears, how can you watch Khalil Herbert and not want to play him all the time? He's phenomenal. So obviously David Montgomery's still out, and Khalil Herbert's their guy. I do believe that. I think Damian Williams will see, maybe 5-6 touches, but for the most part, it's going to be Khalil Herbert, and I do expect another big game out of him. Now for Week 8 sits, guys that I'm not really a big fan of and have my concerns about. Number one is Chase Claypool, wide receiver of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Claypool, as we know, can win you a week if things go right. He's had a 4-touchdown game before. He has that type of potential with the build he has. But the reason I'm concerned is not Claypool himself. It's the offense he plays in and the guy throwing him the ball. Now, last time Claypool was out there, and, I think most people have that belief that once Juju Smith-Schuster was out for the year, it was going to help bump up Chase Claypool. But so far, I don't think that's the case. I feel like Juju, based on the way he's been targeted, especially the last 2 years, since Ben Roethlisberger came back from the injury, it's a lot of short stuff. And with that, I think Pat Freiermuth is probably the more, beneficiary of the Juju injury. So I think Claypool will continue to have his role on the outside and run more deep routes, while a guy like Freiermuth in the middle is going to benefit more from the Juju injury. That's the way I look at it, and we'll see how it goes the rest of the year. Anyway, last game against Seattle, Claypool had 7 targets, but only 2 catches and 17 yards. But the week before that, he did have 5 catches, 130, and a touchdown. So he's very inconsistent, Chase Claypool. I think we know that. And then, Ben Roethlisberger so far has had one of the worst completion percentages on passes over 20 yards. And Cleveland's defense is pretty good. And they've allowed some explosive plays this year, but I just don't know if Chase Claypool is going to get one. And if he doesn't, then he might be a disappointment. So I would try to look elsewhere. Of course, you may be in a situation where you have to play Claypool and pray for a big play, but with Ben Roethlisberger throwing him the ball, it's just not looking pretty right now, so I would try to look elsewhere. Next, we have wide receiver Tyler Boyd, who is 75% owned with the Cincinnati Bengals. They play the Jets this week, of course, and I feel like when we see our fantasy players play the Jets, it's like we think it's the best matchup in the world. But the problem with the Jets is that they're so bad that sometimes it doesn't really benefit passing options, because teams get up so quickly on the Jets, especially with how bad they are in the first quarter. And then it's mostly they run the ball the rest of the game. So Joe Burrow may throw the ball 25 times in this game, and you're kind of just limiting the opportunity to have big games for the receivers and Joe Burrow himself. Now, Tyler Boyd, there is an easy correlation from when T. Higgins plays and when T. Higgins doesn't play, and it definitely reflects on Tyler Boyd. So T. Higgins, I believe, missed weeks 3 and 4 this year. In week 3, Tyler Boyd had 4 catches, 36 yards, and a touchdown at Pittsburgh. Then there was that Thursday night game week 4 against Jacksonville, where Tyler Boyd had his best game of the year. 11 targets, 9 catches, 118 yards. Then T. Higgins comes back to the lineup, and Tyler Boyd is basically invisible. Of course, C.J. Uzama, however the hell you pronounce it, he came back, of course, at tight end. He's making some big plays for them as well. But Tyler Boyd, in the past 3 weeks, has 6 points, 1 point, and 7 points in full PPR. So he has not been very reliable. Yes, he's probably on the field in the slot, but Joe Burrow's not looking his way for some reason. And with Jamar Chase dominating, with T. Higgins getting all the targets he's getting, it's hard for me to imagine playing Tyler Boyd. I mean, maybe in DFS, because he'll be very low owned, maybe Tyler Boyd finds the end zone and he's fine, but just the lack of targets he's getting, it's concerning right now. And right now, Tyler Boyd only has 15 targets the past 3 games. That's 5 targets targets a game. So it's not what I want to bank on. I mean, look, if you're in a 14, 16 team league, maybe you have to play Tyler Boyd, but I think there's better options elsewhere. Next, we have wide receiver Devontae Parker, only 34% owned because he's missed the past 3 weeks with an injury, but I feel like some people may be tempted to play him. I would kind of wait a week for that to happen. Of course, you want to make sure he makes it through this game coming off the injury and missing multiple weeks, but also, Buffalo's defense is number one against allowing big plays. Like, they don't allow many big plays at all. They're one of the best defenses in that regard. And looking at Tua Tagovailoa and who he likes to target, Mike Gesicki is one of his favorite targets. He likes Jalen Waddle. You kind of wonder, can Devontae Parker put up great performances with Tua at quarterback? He has before, but he's definitely looking towards Mike Gesicki more, and he loves throwing to Jalen Waddle. So I have my concerns there, of course. And against the Buffalo defense, once again, it's not allowing big plays. I can't rely on Devontae Parker. So, of course, he can find the end zone and things can happen, but I just think there's better options as well. I don't think many people are looking to play Devontae Parker, but if you're between him and someone else in a better matchup with more guaranteed targets, I'd probably go with the other guy in most cases. Next, we have a quarterback, Ryan Tannehill, 86% owned. Tannehill had a rushing touchdown last week, finally got over 20 points for fantasy for the first time since week 3. So that's good news if you're a Ryan Tannehill owner. I find it hard to believe if someone is starting him every single week. Maybe if you're in a 2-quarterback league or a super flex league, maybe you're playing Tannehill every week, and I get that part. But if you're in a 1-quarterback league, I don't see the point of playing Tannehill this week. He's playing a Colts defense that's allowing only 243 passing yards per contest. Of course, Derrick Henry's very much widely involved, especially in the red zone, getting a lot of goal line carries. And we always think that the pendulum's going to swing and it'll be more for Ryan Tannehill and less for Derrick Henry, but it's just been a lot of Derrick Henry on the goal line. We didn't see it as much last week, but even when they threw a passing touchdown, it was Derrick Henry. He had that wildcat play where he had the snap on the goal line and threw it to the tight end for a touchdown. So even Derrick Henry had a passing touchdown. Derrick Henry is just killing Tannehill's fantasy value, and the reason Tannehill was so good as a fantasy quarterback was touchdowns, and he's not getting them this year. So he's been inconsistent, and Julio Jones has been announced out today, so it's one less very important weapon for the passing offense for the Titans. So I would look elsewhere. I'm sure there's other good quarterback streamers. Daniel Jones, Carson Wentz on the other side of this game is a good one. So I would look to not play Tannehill, but of course anything can happen. He has rushing upside, so if he runs in 2 touchdowns, then I'm wrong, but I'm willing to bet against that. Next, we have running back Melvin Gordon, who's 88% owned, and Gordon's been fine this year. He really has not killed you in many spots. He's been pretty consistent, 6+ points every week. He's had some games where he's popped off and some games where he's been okay, but for this week, at least, against Washington, I have concerns. So Washington's defensive line still getting a lot of pressure, and they probably will win the line of scrimmage because the Broncos' offensive line has not been that great lately. Now, Melvin Gordon, looking at last week, he was really outplayed by Javonte Williams, I think, and Melvin Gordon, if you take away that one receiving touchdown Melvin Gordon had, yes, I understand the concept of taking away something from a player is kind of stupid, but if you just take away that one reception from Melvin Gordon, he drops 7 points and puts up a 4, 5, or 6 point week. So Melvin Gordon's tough to rely on, especially in this matchup. I like Javonte Williams a lot more, the rookie. He's more talented, and the coaching staff's probably going to play him more as the year goes on. So Melvin Gordon, if you can even trade him right now for a decent piece, I would probably try to trade Melvin Gordon. I mean, Gordon's been okay once again. He has not killed you yet, but this is a tough matchup here, and Gordon is only averaging 9 PPR points per game so far this year. So, actually not this year, but in the past, since week 3. Sorry, he's only averaging 9 PPR fantasy points since week 3 because he had the first, I think weeks 1 and 3, Gordon had a big week. So, that kind of inflated his numbers, but, since week 3 here, pretty decent sample size, Gordon's been just blah, whatever, a high-end running back 3. Okay, if I can trade Melvin Gordon and get something valuable in return that has a good rest of season value, maybe a guy that's injured, maybe a Logan Thomas. If I can trade Melvin Gordon for a Logan Thomas and get myself a tight end upgrade or something, I'll do that. So Melvin Gordon I'm benching this week, and I don't feel good about him going forward. Lastly, we have Mike Davis. Feel bad for Mike Davis. Now, this is a revenge game. Remember, they're playing the Panthers, the Falcons. So Mike Davis was a Panther last year. I love revenge game narratives, and I don't want to bet against him. But Mike Davis is his workload was very concerning last week. They played the Dolphins last week. the Falcons had the lead for most of that game. It was very close, but the Falcons took a lead in the fourth quarter, and you would think it would benefit the running backs, which it should. But last week, Cordero Patterson played like 77% of snaps. We saw Wayne Gallman for like 5 or 6% of snaps. He's worked in there now. And Mike Davis only had 4 touches in that game total. He had 4 carries and 0 targets. Now, Mike Davis has been like an okay starter so far because of the targets. He was catching and receiving touchdowns and getting 4, 5, 6 catches, and his PPR value was fine. But if he's not getting targets either, I just don't know how you play Mike Davis. I would still hold on to him in the hopes that something changes here, but it's not looking good for Mike Davis right now. So if, kind of like Melvin Gordon, if I can trade Mike Davis right now and get something for him, something good at least, I would probably do that. But Mike Davis I'm not fine dropping him yet, but let's see how it goes. Anyway, the Panthers are only allowing 15.4 fantasy points per game to the running back position in 2021. That's a good number. So the Panthers are not a good matchup for your fantasy running backs. And I just think unless Mike Davis finds the end zone here, I just don't know how you're going to get any great production out of him. Obviously, they like Cordero Patterson a lot more right now, so I like Mike Davis. I had him last year. He did wonders for my teams, but I feel bad saying this, but I would definitely try to avoid Mike Davis here in week number 8. So anyway, that will do it. Once again, follow the Twitter, MTN_fantasy. If you have any questions, ask me in the comments. I'll get back to you. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you guys next time.